What's up guys, Justin with the Podcast Dojo. Today on Abandoned Locations, we are going to go to one of the crowning champs of dead malls. I'm of course talking about Ohio. More specifically, the Salem Mall in Dayton, Ohio. So let's not waste any more time and jump right into the Salem Mall. Hey guys, one last thing before we begin. I want to say that if you enjoy my cooking videos on nerd culture, be sure to check out my second channel, Cabanov's Corner, as well as Cabanov's Corner on Facebook, where we will be doing monthly giveaways. Salem Mall was built in Dayton, Ohio in 1966 around the Trotwood suburbs. As for the anchors, there was Sears, JCPenney's, and Reich's. There were 60 tenants, some of which included Camelot Music, Spencer's, Merry-Go-Round, Mayer's Jewelry and Records, Hot Shop's Cafeteria, the Metropolitan Apparel, Casano's Pizza King, and the Salem Mall Cinema. The mall would complete renovations in 1981 with a second floor added to the JCPenney's, expanding Reich's and adding a food court. Reich's would eventually close and be replaced by Lazarus. Like most malls that opened in the 1960s, it's inevitable that a bigger and better shopping mall would show up. In 1994, the Fairfield Commons Mall would open up not only nearby but in a nicer neighborhood. The problems for Salem Mall would only get worse in the late 90s. JCPenney's left in 1997 and Lazarus would leave in the following year. Lazarus would eventually become a Home Depot. The nail in the coffin for the mall, however, would happen in the same year Lazarus closed in 1998 when a shooting happened at the mall. This resulted in the store count dropping from 100 stores to 35 stores. At the end of the mall's life, the only stores left were Foot Locker, GNC, and Sears. Speaking of GNC, I heard from a former GNC employee that the reason they tend to survive in malls even when they reach dead status is because GNC tends to buy 20+ year leases so they have cheaper rent. Salem Mall would be demolished in 2006 except for Sears, which would close 8 years later in 2014. So where is the mall today? Well, in June of this year, 2018, the city received a federal grant to demolish the rest of the mall. Now what do I think of this mall? Well, what drew me to talk about it is when it was brought up in one of my live streams. When I looked it up, I was fascinated by the 1960s looking decor. The pillars outside of the Sears even reminded me of the Randall Park Mall. This mall had some problems, mostly a lot of small ones. There was the graying of the community around it, of course. Shooting wasn't the only crime that happened at the mall, but I didn't really find anything as bad as the shooting from what I saw. The original plan was to have Salem Mall built around the Wolf Creek Expressway, a major highway that ended up not being built. Meaning, I'm sure the mall must not have been as easy to get to as it was planned. Salem Mall did not have the best management, as they lost stores and then would fail to attract new ones. There was also the fact that the food court was an afterthought. Now to be fair, food courts tended to appear in the late 80s, early 90s. The renovations were in 1981. Those were the renovations that spawned the food court, so I can understand this being an afterthought. Why was this a problem though? Well, there was very limited seating. Do I think this mall could have survived if the Wolf Creek Parkway had been built? Well, maybe it's hard to say, especially since I'm not from that area, but at the very least I can assume the mall would have been easier to access. If you are from this area, tell me down below whether or not you think a major highway would have helped. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video, hope you learned something, and also be sure to check out Slacking Packing, who was able to document the outside of the Sears. I'll provide a link to his video down below. And also be sure to check out some of the other abandoned Ohio malls that I've talked about, such as Randall Park and Rolling Acres.